Hello, my name is Nicholas Miner, and this is Speech 4. All right, thank you for all coming to my speech about cochlear implants this evening. In 2018, Irene Lay and others co-wrote the book Introduction to American Deaf Culture. In this book, we learn that 96% of deaf individuals are born to hearing parents. Of that percentage, only 20% take the time to learn about ASL and the deaf community. That leaves a staggering 76% of parents who never bother to even try and run straight to doctors so they can get that cochlear implant put in, thinking that that's going to solve all the problems. Most of us would run to a doctor if we had an ailing condition or a medical deficiency that we knew nothing about. There's nothing wrong with that. What I don't agree with is going in and drilling magnets and wires and batteries and cords into your child because you want them to be more like you. That's where the problem lies. Imagine looking down at your child who is deaf. They want to play. They're happy. They're loving. All they know is mommy, daddy, or mommy, whatever it may be. And you take them to the doctor knowing they're going to go under the knife, knowing they're going to go into surgery, and the next few months is about recovery, where your child's constantly digging at the back of their head, trying to get this thing out that they don't know is there. It's all pain. And then you see them, they put the cochlear implant on, you think it's going to be a wonderful moment, and then they're scared because they don't understand what this loud, unhinged, unfiltered thing is coming into their side of their head, sound. Before I go any further, I want to give you a little backstory on cochlear implants. They were founded around the 1970s, and ever since, they have been a major point of controversy within the deaf community. One of the most passionate novels that was written about this struggle for hearing parents was written by Laura Malden in 2016. Laura chronicles the growth of her child from getting the cochlear implant to therapy to constant surgeries, recovery, and anything else in between. The risk of maybe giving your child a chance to hear versus giving them a lifetime of surgeries, that should be an easy choice. Despite the effectiveness of cochlear implants, as Laura shows us with her child being able to hear, I'm here to convince you that hearing parents never have the right to implant their deaf children with cochlear implants. To begin, I'll show you how CIs do not fix hearing, it merely amplifies it. I'll also explain how cochlear implants are a lifetime of commitment that nobody ever asked for. And finally, to gain a botched version of hearing would only subject your child to isolation and identity crisis within the mainstream and the deaf world. Let's start by looking at my first point. Cochlear implants do not fix hearing, it merely amplifies it. That is due to the auditory nerve, or the channel, being drugged and implanted straight together. There's no filter, there's no anything. They hear everything at the loudest capacity possible. Our brains naturally filter out white noise, theirs would not. In 2018, Thomas Holcomb contributed to this book, An Introduction to American Deaf Culture, by saying that most children who have cochlear implants spend most of their time in speech therapy instead of actually learning. They learn to speak, but they're academically deficient. Miranda L. Jansen for Plus One magazine, volume 15 in November of 2020, did a study in Hanover, Germany, with over 100 deaf children. Their hypothesis was if you put 2 cochlear implants in versus 1, they'll be able to hear and they'll be able to pick it up quicker. Their hypothesis was proven incorrect. What actually came from their study was it was the length of time that was important, not how much. Another reason cochlear implants are a lifetime commitment that nobody asked for. In 2018, yet again, Thomas Holcomb was contributing to the book Introduction to American Deaf Culture, where he stated that all this technology, the channels, the magnets, that everything would eventually need to be replaced, repaired, upgraded. It's not cheap. It's very painful, and there's a lot of downtime. Matt Moore in 2017 wrote the book Deaf Reality 101. He contributed to this, also saying there's at least 12 children a year that pass away from complications of cochlear implants. That's not including adults. 2018, Gene Andrews and others wrote the book Deaf Culture. In 1993, the National Association of the Deaf, or the NAD, they had a firm stance as they noticed the increase of cochlear implants being implanted into young children, saying that this should never be the thing. This should not be the first step that parents take. However, a few years later, when they realized that the trend was not changing, they changed their stance. Say, if you're going to implant your child with cochlear implants, then the parent's responsibility to learn ASL and get them involved in the deaf community. My next point is that even with gaining a botched version of hearing, you are still subjecting your child to an identity and isolation crisis between both the mainstream and the deaf world. Deaf community is rooted in ASL. There's nothing wrong within the deaf community. They feel that being deaf is a blessing. It is who they are. They are proud. Without this sense of pride, they suffer from anxiety, depression, oftentimes suicides, and drug use in deaf teenagers drastically raises because they feel like they are alone. Laura Malden, her book, again demonstrates the importance of the deaf community because her child, even though gaining hearing and gaining the ability to speak, was often pushed to the side by people who consider themselves true deaf, as well as the mainstream children who considered her handicapped. I've given you a lot of information today about how cochlear implants don't really hold the same value that doctors put on them. Today I've tried to convince you that cochlear implant or hearing parents should not have the right to implant their deaf children with cochlear implants. I've showed you how cochlear implants do not fix hearing, it merely amplifies it. I've explained how CIs are a lifetime commitment that nobody asked for. And I've shown you how how gaining a botched version of hearing would still subject your child to isolation and identity crisis from both the deaf community and the hearing world. A child's life should be about growth and development, figuring out who they are, what they want to do. It should never be about surgeries and therapy. As a species, we have no true definition of normal. It's vitally important to allow your children to grow up as who they are and not what you want them to be. Should you ever need anything or want to get involved with the deaf community, reach out to the NAD.org. It's the National Association of the Deaf. You can look up local chapters, local group activities. There's oftentimes a lot of activities going on for the deaf world. Before I leave, I want to leave you with a quote from my personal hero, Fred Schreiber. In the 1970s, he was a champion for deaf validation and deaf education. Before he passed away, he was quoted saying, "Ears are cheap. It's what's in between them that's important." Thank you.